Hare Krishna. So today is our third and final day on the topic of the glories of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Can I have a watch? Somebody's watch. Yesterday we were talking about Narad Muni coming to the banks of the Yamuna in Vrindavan and seeing Bhakti Devi with her two old sons, Jnana and Vairagya. Narad Muni understands the reason is that it is Kali Yuga now with all its faults. He elaborates on the faults of Kali. At that time, Bhakti Devi asks him, why then did King Parikshit not kill the personality of Kali? And Narad Muni explains the reason, that King Parikshit, being a Paramahamsa, being a Saragrahi, one who understands the essence of everything, could understand that despite all the numerous faults in this age of Kali, there was one great quality, and that is that merely by accepting the process of bhakti, which involves primarily the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, one can attain perfection. Such an easy process, which is not possible in earlier ages. So, Narad Muni went on to glorify Bhakti Devi herself. And you can come in if you like. Those who are late, there is still space. It's cold outside, sitting in the... You can come in. Yes, so if anyone else wants to come, you can also sit in. Narad Muni said that actually you are very fortunate because you are a very dear associate of Krishna. Krishna has personally empowered you to nourish the hearts of all the devotees in Vaikuntha, and you have expanded yourself to come to this material world also, where you do the same thing. To help you, he sent Mukti Devi, the goddess of liberation, as your maidservant. And he also sent you Jnana and Vairagya, knowledge and detachment, as your sons. Interestingly, why have Jnana and Vairagya come as the sons of Bhakti? Because the sons come from the mother. Where the mother is there, the children follow. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janiyatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam cha yada haitukam. So wherever there is pure devotion to Lord Vasudeva or Krishna, automatically causeless knowledge and detachment emerge. So this is a natural consequence of devotion. The devotee doesn't separately have to strive for detachment and knowledge. It comes merely by the process of serving Lord Krishna. So Narad Muni profusely glorified Bhakti Devi. We discussed that last night. Bhakti Devi replied, O great saint, you have removed all my miseries. I am quite peaceful and equipoised, but that I am concerned about my two sons. They are still old, and this is such an unusual situation. So would you please do something to revive them? We must remember that Narad Muni had taken a vow at this point, just before Bhakti Devi spoke. He said, it is my vow that I will spread your glories everywhere, all over the earth planet. It is a prediction of the coming of ISKCON and for all of the devotees. And he said that if I do not ensure that your festivals, the devotional festivals, are celebrated with great fervor everywhere, all over the world. And if you do not reside in the hearts of every home, in the hearts of every individual in every home, then I will not be called Haridas any longer. Haridas means the servant of Lord Hari. A very bold statement and a vow to make. So Bhakti Devi now requested him to please revive her sons. Then Narad Muni said, yes, not a problem. So he approached Gyan and Vairagya, who were now old people. They were practically lifeless, on the borderline between life and death. The only reason they were still alive was because of the touch of the dust of Vrindavan. Otherwise they had no business being alive. So Narad Muni, he went to them, and in their ears he started chanting the various Upanishads, one by one. Narad Muni is a great scholar, so he knows all the Upanishads. Then he chanted the Vedanta. And as he was chanting, there was just a glimmer of hope. They were arising, but going back to sleep again. A little bit opening their eyes with great difficulty, and again going back to sleep. Then he chanted the Bhagavad Gita, all the 700 verses into their ears, and their eyes opened just a little bit. But they yawned and again fell back to sleep. Sounds familiar? Happens every morning? And so they fell back. Their complexion was, they were white like the feathers of a duck, pale, and they were weak and emaciated, completely old, without any strength in the body. They were just lying there as if they were dead. And whenever Narad Muni would chant the Upanishads and the Vedanta and the Bhagavad Gita, they would just show some symptoms of life or awakening. There was some hope, false hope. Again they would collapse. They were just too weak. Narad Muni tried and tried and tried. And he started wondering, what is going on? I've chanted the Vedanta, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita even. But then it's not able to revive Gyan and Vairagya. Just at that moment, there was a voice in the sky. And the voice said, "Oh dear sage Narada, please do not become disheartened. There is a way. You must now learn about that specific noble act, that Sat Karma. Sat means that which is true or noble. Karma means activity. So you must perform that Sat Karma, that noble activity about which you will hear from certain saintly persons. Once you do that, then Bhakti will become blissful, and Gyan and Vairagya will also be completely revived. Fear not." And then the voice stopped. So Narad Muni was thinking, who is this? Who is this that spoke? Anyway, it must be the Lord himself, perhaps. But then, what is that process? What is that Sat Karma? What is that noble activity that I have to do in order to revive Gyan and Vairagya and to make Bhakti blissful again? And where do I find those saintly people who are going to reveal this process to me? So Narad Muni went everywhere to all the holy places, but no luck. He couldn't find the answer. He couldn't meet those saintly people who would reveal all this information to him. Finally, he decided to take shelter of the holy place called Badrikashram in the Himalayas, Badrinath. How many of you have been to Badrinath? Yes, it's an experience of a lifetime. Those of you who go to India next time, after you have gone to Vrindavan and Mayapur, make some time to go there as well. But you can only go there from May to November. And it's a rather adventurous journey. So he went to Badrinath and started performing austerities over there. There it so happened that the 4 senior-most sons of Brahma, the 4 Kumaras, came along. Even though they're the senior-most sons of Brahma, they actually look just like little boys, 5-year-old. And they have remained like that from the time of the beginning of the universe. As little boys, 5 years old. Narad Muni recognized them. They were his older brothers, because Narad Muni is also the son of Brahma. So as soon as he saw them, he stood up, offered his respects to them, and began to glorify them. Oh, great saintly personalities, the sons of Brahma, you are constantly floating in the bliss of Krishna consciousness, of remembrance of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. You are constantly vibrating the syllables of the holy name and experiencing this ecstasy. You are traveling all over the world, all over the universe, spreading this wonderful nectar of devotion to the Lord. You only look like small 5-year-old boys, but actually you are the wisest and the oldest persons in the universe. So Narad Muni went on glorifying the 4 Kumaras. And then the 4 Kumaras, they also glorified Narad Muni. And they said, Naradji, you're looking a little distraught. What is the problem? Then Narad Muni said, and oh great sages, I want to know the secret of that divine voice that I heard from the sky. And he described the incident that happened. What is that satkarma? What is that noble act by performing which bhakti, jnana and vairagya can be revived and made blissful, so that they may reside in the hearts of all living beings on the earth? And who are those saintly people who will reveal all this to me? Then the 4 Kumaras said, O Narad Muni, you are the sun among the devotees of the Lord. You are the crest jewel of all devotees. You yourself are the ornament of this universe. Wherever you go, you are constantly chanting the names of the Supreme Lord. You are truly most fortunate, for you make all the places auspicious wherever you go. Yes, indeed, we do know the process, and that divine voice alluded to us. We will reveal this process to you, the satkarma, by which bhakti, jnana and vairagya will be revived. So hear attentively, because you are well versed in these topics. All you have to do is to chant the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which contains the glories of Lord Krishna, which contains the nectarian descriptions of the pastimes of Krishna. If you simply do that, then everything will be achieved. Because all paths of liberation, like the process of karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, they don't work in Kali Yuga. They were there in earlier ages, but in this age only bhakti can work. Nothing else works here. And the heart of bhakti is hearing and chanting about Krishna and his pastimes and glories and messages. So simply recite with faith and devotion the glories of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, and everything will happen. So Narad Muni heard, but he said, my dear sages, please remove my doubt. I am not able to understand this. The Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is but the essence of the Vedas. It is the essence of the Vedanta. Now, I have already chanted the Vedanta. I have chanted the 4 Vedas. I have chanted the Upanishads. I have even chanted the Bhagavad Gita into the ears of these 2 sons of Bhakti, Jnana and Vairagya. But that could not revive them. And if Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which is the essence of these same scriptures, how can that revive them? So I have this doubt in my mind, O sages. Please remove this doubt and explain to me how it is that simply by hearing Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Bhakti and Jnana and Vairagya will be revived. So the four Kumaras began to explain very nicely with good examples. They said, you are absolutely right that the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is the essence of all the Vedic scriptures. And actually it is a ripened fruit of this tree. Now you all know the second or the third verse of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Nigama kalpa taror galitam phalam shuka mukhad amrita drava samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam mahur ahur muhur rasika bhavibhavikaha. So in which it is explained that Nigama refers to the Vedas. Anyone knows the meaning of the word Nigama? Nigam is a popular surname. Anyone with the surname Nigam here? Generally, the word Nigam is there in the telephone exchange. It's called the Nigam in India. The word Nigam consists of two words, Ni and Gama. Ni means downwards, Gama means to go. That which comes downwards, that refers to the Vedas. Why so? Because the Vedic knowledge comes from the Supreme Lord, and through the disciplic succession of saintly people comes down to us. And it is not simply whimsically chucked and handed, it is actually carefully handed down. Just as from a big mango tree, someone goes to the top, plucks a mango, hands it down, doesn't chuck it down, but there's a process. He hands it to somebody else who's on the next branch, who carefully hands it to the person on the lower branch, and all the way down it comes to us standing on the ground, and then we can get that fruit and we can relish it. So the Vedas are called Nigama because the knowledge is passed down in disciplic succession. It doesn't go upwards. Now the Vedas are compared to a tree, and the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is the ripened fruit of that tree. Galitam phalam. Galitam means mature or ripe. Phalam means fruit. And Shuka mukhad amrita drava samyutam. And even though the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is very tasty, very delicious, nectarian, it has become even more so after being spoken by Shukadev Goswami. Shuka, the word in Sanskrit means parrot. Actually, Shukadev Goswami is Srimati Radharani's parrot. We won't have time to talk about that pastime today. But anyway, he is Srimati Radharani's parrot in Goloka Vrindavan. It is also said that when a parrot tastes a particular fruit, then that fruit becomes more delicious having been touched by the beak of the parrot. So these fruits are considered especially tasty. So similarly, the fruit called the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which is the ripened fruit of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, was spoken by Shukadev Goswami. In other words, he tasted this fruit, and this fruit has become even more delicious, even more nectarian, even though it was already very nectarian. Now, when a fruit is not ripe, then it's not sweet. Have you ever tried eating a mango that is not ripe? It's sour. Then you don't get the same pleasure that you get when it is sweet and ripe. So there may be other scriptures, but as part of the Vedic tree, there's a bark. The bark is not very delicious. Have you tried eating the bark of a tree? Or have you tried eating a twig? Or perhaps started eating a few flowers or a few leaves? It's not tasty. So there are so many Vedic scriptures in the tree of the Vedas. Not tasty. not delicious, it's not nectarian, not nourishing to the soul, doesn't give us happiness. They're scriptures, they're part of the Vedic tree, but they don't give us that supreme satisfaction of the soul. What will give us satisfaction? It's the fruit. And not just the fruit, but the ripened fruit. So the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is a ripened fruit of the Vedic tree. Now, how is it that from something which is bitter and certainly not sweet, like the tree of the mango, that a sweet fruit like the mango comes? Because Narada's doubt was that the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is the essence of the Vedic scriptures and the Vedanta and so on. I have already chanted the Vedanta. If the Vedanta hasn't worked, if the tree hasn't worked, how will the fruit work? That was his logic. It makes sense. So the four Kumaras explained that you see, the essence of a tree lies in its vital fluid, that goes from the tip of the roots right through into all the branches, to the very tips of the roots of the branches. But that vital fluid cannot be accessed in the tree as a whole. But that vital fluid of the tree goes and gathers in the fruit. And when you taste that ripened fruit, then you can taste this vital fluid of the tree. The essence of the tree, all the good qualities of the tree, they come into that fruit. And therefore the fruit is able to do what even the tree cannot do. So therefore the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, which is the essence, it is the ripened fruit of the Vedic tree, the tree of Vedanta, can do what even the four Vedas can't do, the Vedanta can't do, the Upanishads can't do. So this is the secret of the fruit and the tree, of how the fruit can do something which even the tree can't. They gave another example. And they said, milk can be transformed into ghee. We talked about ghee the other day. Now, ghee is latently present in the milk. But if you simply drink the milk, you can't get the benefit of ghee. There is a process. You have to extract the ghee from the milk. Then you have to first make it into yogurt. Then you have to churn the yogurt, get the butter, boil the butter, then you get ghee. So the ghee is already latently present in the milk, but still, when that ghee is actually extracted, then you can get benefit which is many times more than merely drinking the milk. So even though the ghee is there in the milk, by merely drinking the milk, you can't get the benefit you can get when that ghee is extracted and you take that ghee. Then that ghee becomes so much more nourishing, nutritious, it makes the food so much more tastier. So similarly, the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is like the ghee or the butter. The Bhāgavatam also says the same thing, gives this example of the butter. And the Vedic scriptures are like the milk. So the milk is also nourishing. So if you read the Vedanta, the Upanishads, yes, of course, there's some benefit. But if you eat food cooked in ghee, my word, then you'll be strong as anything. And also you'll become very intelligent to understand the Krishna conscious philosophy. The third example the four Kumaras gave is they said, if you want sugar, then you can't just simply bite a sugar cane. Yes, you'll get some sweetness, but not so much. But when that sugar cane is crushed to extract juice, then that juice is boiled and boiled and boiled, then it made into molasses, and from molasses is further transformed and transformed. Eventually, after a long time, the final product is pure, delicious sugar, which is concentrated sweetness. So the benefit that sugar can give, or the taste of that sugar, is not available simply in that sugar cane, even though the sugar cane has some sweetness. So in the same way, O great sage Narada, this Śrīmad Bhāgavatam can do what even the entire body of Vedic literatures cannot do. So have faith and simply recite Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. And have you forgotten, O Narad Muni, you yourself gave this instruction to your disciple Vyasadeva. Do you remember this? You all remember the first canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. What happened? Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedic literature, was sitting in his ashram, Samyaprasa, on the banks of the river Saraswati in the Himalayas. And he was a little morose. Even though he had compiled the Mahabharata, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Vedanta, there was some sense of dissatisfaction and restlessness in him, and he wasn't able to understand why. He suspected it, but he wasn't able to really pinpoint it. At that very moment, his spiritual master, Narad Muni, arrived, traveling through the skyways. Vyasadeva was very happy. He welcomed him and offered him a nice seat, worshipped him. And then Narad Muni asked Vyasadeva, "Oh great Muni, there's something that's a problem, it seems. You seem a little dissatisfied. What is the difficulty? After all, you've compiled all the scriptures and Mahabharata and everything. You're the master of Vedic knowledge. And why are you unhappy?" So Vyasadeva replied, "My dear Lord, you are all-knowing. You are the all-knowing great devotee of Krishna. So you very well know with your X-ray vision what's wrong in my heart. Please tell me why I am dissatisfied." And then Narad Muni said, "The sum and substance of your dissatisfaction is that you have not glorified Krishna and his pastimes. You have talked about so many other subjects without really focusing on Krishna and his pastimes. And in many occasions, through the Karmakanda scriptures, you have even encouraged sense gratification in the name of religion. That's a mistake. And that's why you're not feeling satisfied. Because it is only the description of the Lord's glories and his pastimes and his holy names that can satisfy the soul. And when the soul is satisfied, one becomes completely free of all restlessness. One achieves great bliss." So then Vyasadeva did just that. And based on Narad Muni's instructions, he compiled the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So the four Kumaras reminded him of that. And they said, "My dear Narad Muni, when you heard the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam from your Guru and our Guru as well, Brahma, you heard it only in 4 verses, the nutshell verses, Chatuh Shloki Bhagavat. And then when you explained these 4 verses, you explained Bhagavatam to Vyasadeva, you also explained it in a nutshell form, just in a few verses. But now you need to hear the entire Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. If that is done, then automatically Bhakti will become blissful, Jnana and Vairagya will be revived, for sure." So Narad Muni said, "Yes, O great sages, I will certainly do that. So where should I do this and how?" So the 4 Kumaras said, "Go to the place called Haridwar on the banks of the Ganga, at the foothills of the Himalayas. There is a place called Ananda. There you can set up a facility where the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam can be continuously chanted. And you will see the miracle that takes place at that time. And what the prophecy said in the voice that came from the sky will actually come true now." So Narad Muni happily went to Haridwar, which wasn't so far from Badrikashram, and he started arranging everything. Meanwhile, news spread like wildfire. The Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is going to be spoken by the 4 Kumaras at Haridwar. So everybody came in from all over the universe by the different ways. All the aerial ways were jam-packed, traffic jams everywhere with all the sages and saints traveling from Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka. And the expressways, the spatial ways were all filled with people, sages coming in. And even from the earth, everyone started heading towards Haridwar to hear the four Kumaras speak Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Everyone assembled. The four Kumaras arrived on the scene. Narad Muni welcomed them, offered them a seat, the Vyasasana, what later came to be known as Vyasasana, the seat of Vyasa. And then the four Kumaras began to glorify the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. And as they were doing that, and as the glorification was going on, a wonderful thing happened. Bhakti Devi and her two sons all of a sudden appeared there. Bhakti Devi was looking extremely blissful, and her two sons, what a wonder and miracle, their old age had disappeared. They had become young once again. And Bhakti Devi was so happy that she was chanting the holy names. This particular thing that's common in India, Shri Krishna Govinda, Hare Murari, He Nath Narayana Vasudeva. So Bhakti Devi was chanting this. Before I read this section many years ago, I used to wonder where this song comes from. Then when I read this, I understood it comes from the Padma Purana. Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murari He Nath Narayana Vasudeva. So Bhakti Devi was chanting this. She was so blissful, chanting the holy names of Lord Krishna. And Jnana and Vairagya, once again like young men, they had become completely rejuvenated. All their weakness and lethargy of old age was gone. And as the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam recitation progressed, of course the four Kumaras had earlier prescribed a certain process of how it should be done. And as the recitation progressed, then everyone was getting more and more blissful. And at the end of it, when it was all over, then Bhakti Devi and her two sons came up to the four Kumaras. Thank you very much for saving our lives. We are most indebted to you. What instructions do you have for us? So the four Kumaras said, yes, now you may go and live in the hearts of the devotees and never leave that place. The hearts of the devotees of Krishna. Nourish their hearts. So even though Bhakti, or rather Jnana and Vairagya, are not healthy in this age, but they live in the hearts of the devotees along with their mother Bhakti. And thus the devotees live very wonderful lives of detachment from this material world with full knowledge of Krishna and full devotion to Krishna. I've condensed the last part a little bit, but the message has got across. Simply by hearing regularly the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, actually, which also contains the glorification of the holy names of Krishna, automatically devotion for the Supreme Lord Krishna will emerge. All inauspicious things will disappear. And the four Kumaras went on to explain how the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam was actually not different from Krishna. It was a literary incarnation of Krishna, the sound representation of Krishna. So when we read the Bhāgavatam, hear the Bhāgavatam, we are with Krishna. Every chapter, every verse, every syllable of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam is transcendental sound vibration. And when chanted with faith and devotion, then it purifies our heart and gives us bhakti, jnana and vairagya. Grantharaj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. There are other narrations also, independent of this particular narration, which can be reserved for some other time. So this is how we can understand the Padma Puran's description of the glories of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. It's called the Bhagavat Mahatmya. Now in the previous two sessions, we didn't have time for questions. We don't have time for questions even now, but there is time for perhaps one or two short questions. So if anyone has a question or two, you may ask. Yes.
Krishna, thank you very much for a wonderful session. In the very first session, you mentioned that there are two types of nectar. You were mentioning that one, the real nectar of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, the other one nectar came from the milk ocean, and then the demigods brought them to Shukadeva Swami, and then Shukadeva Swami rejected, having known the real nectar. Now, in the study of Bhagavad Gita, we know that there are yoga ladder, and the Sakama Bhakti Yoga, that's where the yoga starts, and then Nishkama, Nakama. So, Sakama Bhakti, the devotees, are also like sort of Mishra Bhaktas. They are not up to the platform of the Akama Bhakta. So, in the course of study of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, so how do we reconcile that the effect of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam can also be available for the practicing devotees who are not even up to the stage of Nishkama, Rakama level? So how do we understand? Because here it's very clear that, from the example, that Bhagavatam doesn't take any effect because Shukadeva Goswami rejected.
Okay, the question is that the demigods were mixed devotees, and therefore Shukadeva Goswami didn't give the nectar of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam to them. But so also we find that we are also mixed devotees because we have some material desires. We are not totally purified. So how are we eligible to receive this nectar? Number one, we are eligible to receive it to the extent that we surrender ourselves to the process. There may be some lingering material desires in the heart, but if we have accepted with conviction and determination the conclusion of pure devotional service as the ultimate goal of life, and we are pursuing it in all sincerity, but we are being harassed by some material desires, but because we are principally focused on that ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness, so we are on the path of pure devotional service. Even though we may technically not be pure devotees, but we are pure devotees because we are on the path of pure devotional service. That's how Prabhupada explains it. Where he says you may not be a pure devotee, but you're called a pure devotee because you're on the path of pure devotional service in all sincerity. And therefore we are eligible to hear, and that's the method of purification. So when we submit ourselves to this process of hearing Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, we will become purified. Okay, any other question? One more? Yes.
Maharaj, the demigods are at the end of the day more empowered than ordinary jivas. I'm not talking about the Paramahamsas on the planet, but most of the jivas. So in that sense, since they are empowered, then they would be more trustworthy in the Lord's eyes, because then they have been empowered to perform higher responsibilities for the material world. So still, I'm not able to understand that why they cannot hear the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Same applies to them.
The question is that when the demigods are empowered with higher responsibilities in the universe as devotees of the Lord, why is it that they are still ineligible to hear Śrīmad Bhāgavatam? Actually, they do hear Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. There is a Śrīmad Bhāgavatam up there as well. But even though they're empowered for the sake of administering the universe, not necessarily for the process of spreading Krishna consciousness. That is reserved for the devotees of Radha Vallabha at Melbourne. So they have these mixed desires. So that becomes an obstacle. For them, Kali Yuga, there is no Kali Yuga for the demigods. But for us humans on earth, there is Kali Yuga. And that ocean of faults, Kali, which comes from the word Kalaha, which means faults, also has another meaning. Kam Krishnam Lati Dadati iti Kalihi. So Kali is that age in which Krishna is most easily available. Yes, despite all its faults, but this one overwhelming good quality. In other ages, people wouldn't have that natural faith in bhakti. They would think, oh, that's okay, that's for those who can't do the other things. But people were so qualified, they could do jnana, meditation for thousands of years and do austerities, unimaginable for us. So the path of bhakti was not given so much focus in those ages. But in this age, we're helpless. We're just not qualified for karma, jnana, yoga. Thankfully, we are not qualified. Otherwise, probably we would have started doing all that and missed the essence, which is bhakti. And by those processes, Krishna is not so easily available. Krishna is most easily available only by bhakti, which is hearing and chanting about Krishna. So therefore, Kali is the age in which Krishna is most easily available. So how fortunate we are to be born in Kali Yuga and to live in Melbourne. Thank you very much. Grantharaj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande, Hare Krishna. Thank you.